Nigeria's economic growth slows to 2.31% in first quarter of Naira crunch. Central Bank of Nigeria monetary policy increases interest rate amid rising inflation. Banks to issue multi-purpose debit card as national ID in Nigeria. Plus, oil stable as investors weigh U.S. debt uncertainty potential. OPEC plus cuts. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. Good to have you join us. It's time to talk business. I will start by telling you that the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has for the sixth straight time increased the monetary policy rates to combat inflationary trends. Governor of the Central Bank at the end of the 291st meeting in Abuja expressed concerns over the forex crisis and maintained fuel subsidy has to go. Liakatumbabatunde reports that the committee sees continuous inflation increase in the short run.
Factors affecting the Nigerian economy both locally and globally are multifaceted. Latest figures from the National Bureau of Statistics indicate the fourth quarter of 2022 grew by 2.31%, lower than the 3.52% recorded in the previous quarter. The build-up to the general elections, a dearth in oil production output, and a foreign exchange shortage exacerbated by fuel importation have combined to push inflation upwards. With the coming up of the Dangote refinery, Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, is optimistic the pressure will reduce and called on the company to return the supportive favor it got from the bank, government, and people of Nigeria.
When it comes to our reserves, it's not the point. It is the fact that the dollar is available that will be sold into the market so that customers of banks who need to import do not necessarily have to be resorting to CBN for dollar. They can go to their banks and Dangote will sell their banks those dollars, and we are going to ensure that it's done at good market rate.
The Monetary Policy Committee noted a need for increased monetary and fiscal cooperation as the CBN looks to reduce interventions in the economy. Cumulative disbursement to the real sector is 2.56 trillion naira, but debt concerns have continued to linger.
Taming inflation through raising rates is what is at the heart of what we are addressing at our meeting. And it is a global phenomenon. In fact, your monetary policy decisions will be seen to be not in line or not in tandem with macroeconomic policy decision-making process. If at a time when you are seeing an aggressive rise in inflation rate, what you are doing is an easing policy, it can't work.
Subsequently, the committee voted to raise the lending rate by 50 basis points to a record 18.5% and retained all parameters as it notes the economy needs to build more reserves to combat shocks.
The federal government has renewed cooperation agreement with Konrad Adenauer Stiftung (CAS) to further strengthen Nigeria's democratic institutions and promote good governance. Under the terms of the agreement signed at the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, CAS will continue to provide technical support and assistance to the federal government in areas such as training programs, research, policy advice, and seminars.
Some of the fruits of such collaborations are the capacity building programs for special and technical assistance to the ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which was the first of its kind in the annals of the history of CAS operation in Nigeria.
This is not just formal cooperation. You're really looking to find the best in your relations with international organizations to find the best, or what is best for Nigeria.
The quest to establish an aviation hub around Lagos Airport is gradually becoming a reality, with the expansion of existing terminals to create seamless passenger experience. The latest is the expansion of the General Aviation Terminal at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, which the Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, describes as a child of necessity due to the growing number of passengers. Michael Olaleye reports.
When it comes to domestic flight operations, the General Aviation Terminal at the Lagos Airport is a vital transit and destination point for air travel. But the increase in the volume of passengers is changing the seamless and friendly experience once synonymous with these environments. In response to this development, which is taking a toll on existing facilities, the federal government has created expansion, with these being the latest. The Aviation Minister said the facility, which contains protocol lounge, airline office spaces with a complement of conveniences, will enhance safety, security, and comfort of passengers.
In this terminal, which will increase from 256 passenger capacity to 1,054, which is significant. So that's about 4 times the capacity we increase on this terminal. And you agree with me, this is a terminal needing at the time to be expanded. We are leaving aviation better than we met it. We have doubled the number of airlines, doubled the number of airports, quadrupled the number of passengers.
A projected increase in air cargo import and export offers huge prospects for Nigeria to gain from. This potential are in focus as the minister also inspected work on the newly constructed cargo terminal at the Lagos airports. In Lagos, Michael Olaleye.
And recently, the Senate passed a resolution calling on the Central Bank of Nigeria to release $717.478 million in airline funds that are currently trapped in the country to airlines affected. The Senate also asked the CBN to allocate $25 million to airlines operating in Nigeria at its dollar auction. We have in the studio Captain Roland Yayi, former MD, CEO, Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, and President Tabras Aviation Limited. He will be speaking on trapped airline funds in Nigeria and the intervention by the Senate. But before the discussion, let's see what the members of the Red Chamber said.
Consequences of these block funds are that cheap tickets are not available in Nigeria because taxes and inflation will have eroded the profit when the funds are kept for a very long time.
So international obligation we have with the airlines to remit the monies they have. We are also doing businesses in all of these countries. And I think it's not very good for Nigeria and for our image, for Nigeria to be owing or to not be remitting monies when they are due.
If it is on terms and conditions, we have that mandatory responsibility to meet up these terms as a nation. And to say that we appeal to him as if it is his discretionary powers, to me, does not arise.
This is the most expensive ticket ever purchased in Nigeria. It has nothing to do with the CBA. It has nothing to do with anybody. It just has something to do with the airlines. We cannot continue in this manner to please these airlines.
Definitely there is something wrong. If our neighboring countries that are not as economically vibrant or buoyant as our own economy are getting a better deal, then there should be things they are doing perhaps that are right, and in our own case there are things that are happening that are not right.
And prayer 3, the last prayer, appeal to the airlines not to withdraw their services while efforts are ongoing to resolve the issue.
To start with, air transport is a very important aspect of transportation, and it is very delicate to the growth of Nigeria's economy. And we understand that Nigeria alone accounts for 44% of total airlines blocked funds in the world. How did we get to this point of having such amount of trapped funds with the CBN? Can you take us through what is happening here?
Thank you very much. In terms of international airlines operate into Nigeria on the basis of a bilateral air services agreement, or in some cases multilateral agreements. Those agreements are very clear in terms of the responsibilities of parties. In Nigeria's case, just like in every other case with anywhere you have a bilateral agreement, the host country is mandatorily required to transfer and revenues by the foreign airline from their country to their respective countries. Unfortunately, what has happened over the years is that the Central Bank of Nigeria, albeit that we have in place an agreement with all these countries, has not been able to remit these funds as at when due. What, in fairness to the government, this outgoing government, when they took over in 2015, we had over $400 million in terms of trapped funds for foreign airlines. And the government was very magnanimous. Well, I say magnanimous, it was an obligation to have those monies released immediately and paid. Unfortunately, for whatever reasons, I think we dropped the ball. And in the last 7 years or so, these monies have now accumulated to the tune of 700 million. Now, the import of this is that, we're talking about the sanctity of agreements. If Nigeria is not able to uphold an agreement it entered into willingly, it does not, bode well for the image of a country in the international community. And of course, we're talking about federal, we're talking about FDIs coming into the country. The foreign airlines at this point in time, they are the primary airlines that allow access into Nigeria from foreign entities. The domestic carriers can only do it on the domestic front. So to that extent, the obligation to have all these monies released to these foreign airlines is very, very crucial to the growth in terms of economy of a country. So if Nigeria as a country reneges on this obligation, the import of it is that it can, we can get ostracized. I saw in the clip there Senator Orji Kalu talking about the fact that our fares out of Nigeria are
about the highest compared to neighboring countries,
compared to the regional countries. That's exactly the case, because why? The issue of airline ticketing is a function of demand and supply. How many people do you have traveling out of Accra? I'm talking about Ghanaians. How many do you have traveling out of Nigeria? We have a huge demand out of Nigeria, vis-a-vis what you look at in countries like Ghana or Cotonou, Benin Republic or Togo. So to that extent, you cannot compare when an airline sees value for its product. Absolutely, they will take advantage of it. So what they have done essentially is to say, look, there's a higher demand out of Nigeria. We have limited capacity. So a function of demand and supply means that you pay more for the seat you get it. In any case,
talking about volume of business now and the forces of demand and supply. Yes, there's value in Nigeria. We have a lot of Nigerians love to travel.
Yes.
Then the market is here.
Yes.
But in terms of capacity and the number of service providers, yes, it's limited. So now the foreign airlines, what you're saying is that the foreign airlines are taking advantage of this market gap for us to pay the much we are paying. And in the whole of this crisis, it started from Jet 1 fuel being scarce, the prices kept skyrocketing, then the passengers are the ones that receive at the receiving end. That was partly resolved. Then the issue of dollar not that available from the CBN, that one is being resolved. Then with this issue of trap funds, in all, what's the backlash like, and how far would that go to affect a business as well as the Nigerian economy?
Well, let me say this. To reverse this trend, Nigeria needs to be a manufacturing country. We need to produce something. You know, what we're doing right now, we're a consumer nation. And for as long as you consume and you're not producing, you can't sell anything. So as long as you're not earning, I mean, right now our earnings are tied to all the oil exports, nothing more. I mean, we have agriculture, we have also, I mean, so many other services we could export, but we're not doing that. The full emphasis on oil has created the huge gap, because once you have a restive region of the country and you have oil theft, then of course it erodes into the possible revenues of federal government. It becomes very difficult to meet obligations. So invariably there's been a need since 2010 to diversify the economy of this country, to allow for other sources of revenue or income, so the country can at least not be fully dependent on the oil imports or exports rather. So we have a situation where we need to move away by diversifying our economy from a consumer nation to one that produces. When we do that, you have additional earnings from other sources that can augment your forex. And it is only when you have some like that that you can now talk about the possibility of being able to address the concern. In terms of a backlash, it's a huge backlash. We're talking about, you know, when a country is looked at as not being able to hold, you know, the obligations it has by way of a contract, that itself is a major negative on the image of a country, you know, and it doesn't help. I mean, once you have that situation, you cannot have investments come into the country. So we actually, I mean, I don't know how to put this, but we're not helping ourselves by not addressing the major issues. People are talking about the fact that the airlines are taking advantage. No, the airlines will take undue advantage if they find the gap. A Nigerian will do exactly the same thing. So what we're talking about here is a function of business. So the government needs to actually buckle up and focus on the real issues. I think where we are at this point, I mean, take for instance aviation. Well, I mean, this is an aviation issue. It should have been addressed by a combination of the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Aviation, and the central bank governor. But somehow we've allowed it to slip. If the energy that is being put, say for instance by the Minister of Aviation, in trying to address issues that could have been addressed 8 years ago in the last 8 days of this administration, maybe it will be better. Because as it is, the focus of this government, outgoing government, is to saddle the incoming government with obligations that would immediately upon arrival truncate any sort of developmental initiatives they may have. So I think it's important.
With these issues that actually been, they are kind of cumulative over time. And we are looking at a new administration that is coming in about some days. What should we be looking up to from here in terms of building local capacity for our local airlines to get to take over some parts of this market, talking about us flying globally?
Well, again, it boils down to what ordinarily the Minister of Aviation could have done in the last 8 years. I mean, he's focused mainly on establishing a national carrier. Countries have moved away from national carriers. All they do in this day and age is talk about flag carriers. And who are flag carriers? British Airways is a flag carrier. Virgin Atlantic is a flag carrier. A flag carrier is a private enterprise that a country promotes and supports. We have capable airlines in Nigeria that are actually well equipped. You have Air Peace, you have Asman, you have Max Air. These airlines have long-haul aircraft, but no, have they been designated to fly, you know, on a basis of reciprocity to all these countries? No. And why is that? Because we do not have a Ministry of Aviation that has helped to grow the domestic base. If you did this, the volume of capital flight you have by way of the trap funds would have been reduced by, if on a basis of reciprocity, almost by half. So the issue is, if you focus on getting Nigerians to be able to fly Nigeria, because it becomes a policy, you change the dynamics. But we have not done that. Rather, we have been focused on setting up a national carrier to compete with the domestic carriers, a national carrier that will be owned by private individuals, that is not in the right context of it, in the longer term interest of the country. So why are we focused on the wrong things?
Well, Captain, it seems there's a lot that needs to be handled in this light. Well, we look forward to changes, more so that more bilateral air service agreements have been signed across the continent. So we just hope to see better service delivery from local base, talking about Nigerian airlines flying all over the world. Thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts and insight with us at this particular point in time. This is a conversation we would love to continue with you some other time.
Thank you very much.
Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariola, has told judicial officers to interpret and apply the law to encourage financial inclusion while safeguarding consumer interests. The Chief Justice made the call on the back of the escalating frequency and sophistication of cyber attacks in the country.
Collaboration between the judicial, financial regulators, and industrial stakeholders is of utmost importance if we must successfully navigate the challenges posed by modern banking and digital services.
Investors are more willing to invest in jurisdictions where the rule of law takes prominence in shaping business and investment decisions. The judiciary helps to ensure that all parties adhere to legal and ethical standards, and individuals and businesses can seek relief through the law courts on violations of agreements.
And the House of Representatives recommends that a forensic audit of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited be conducted in order to unravel discrepancies in the importation and supply of PMS. This, the House says, has become necessary to ascertain the daily average volume of PMS consumed in Nigeria.
We look at the area of supply, we look at the area of distribution, we look at the area of storage. What NNPC will give you as the supply of petroleum products, particularly PMS, to the country is different from what the authority gives, and it's also different from what Nigerian Navy gives. When we ask the Accountant General to tell us the amount that the country pays for subsidy, the Accountant General will not give us an answer.
The Commission 2 expect the full implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. Carried.
Now, Nigeria's equities market advanced its northward trend on Wednesday, rising by 0.58% to defy rate hike by the Monetary Policy Committee. At the end of the day's trading session, a total of 455.2 million shares in 6,635 deals corresponding to a market value of 7.833 billion naira were traded. Compared with Tuesday's trading session, the data showed 30% improvement in volume, 52% improvement in turnover, and 12% improvement in deals. The market's capitalization was 28.8 trillion naira. Access Holdings recorded the highest volume of 62.2 million traded shares, followed by United Bank for Africa and Zenith Bank. Hong Kong stocks fall 2% and below 2-month low. Bank of Korea holds rates. Boseriebo has more on the global market.
Maintained negative figures Thursday morning after the Fitch Ratings placed the United States American Automobile Association rating on negative rating watch. Meanwhile, Nasdaq 100 futures rallied after a strong earnings beat from Nvidia. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures fell 70 points or 0.21%. Meanwhile, Nasdaq 100 futures jumped 1.53% and S&P 500 futures gained 0.48%. European markets were mixed early Thursday, failing to shake off negative sentiment seen yesterday on the back of ongoing U.S. debt ceiling negotiations. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index led losses in Asia as it fell more than 2% and breached its 2-month low, falling below the 19,000 mark for the first time since March 20. Mainland Chinese markets also fell, with the Shanghai Composite down 1.09% and the Shenzhen Composite 0.53% lower. Africa stocks open mixed, with South Africa JSE Africa Top 40 posting gains, while Namibia overall index negative. Boss said they able Business Express.
On that note, we wrap Business Express. For now, remember to send in your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also, be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's channel. Business Express returns Friday at 3 p.m. I am Benny Adams saying, have a wonderful day ahead.